Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. Coming up, we head to Humberside Airport to check out a new £5 million trading academy. We hear from Peter Vickers, Industrial Chaplain of North Lincolnshire, in our weekly reflections. And my guest tonight is Deirdre Perry from the Grimsby Symphony Orchestra as they appeal for new members. Welcome to Estuary News. I'm Hugh Richards. Now it's time for the news headlines.
A man has been pronounced dead at the scene following the discovery of a car at the Barnaby Top roundabout. A red BMW was located by police patrols shortly after 4 a.m. Humberside police are asking anyone who has any information about the collision between approximately 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. to get in touch. Residents have spoken of their shock after a man was hit by a taxi and killed in Hessle. The man, believed to be in his 50s, was run over by a black Mercedes Vito taxi on Woodfield Lane shortly before 2 a.m. yesterday. Elsewhere, heavy fog has been causing traffic delays across Hull and East Riding. 3 cars collided on Headon Road this morning, causing severe delays. One westbound lane was closed with long queues of traffic building up along Headon Road and into Hull city centre. A local sports club in Lincolnshire is appealing for members. The Louth Goalball team say they need both sighted and people with visual impairments to volunteer as both players and stewards. The team has had recent tournament success due to training sessions led by former national player Philip Dreen, who is encouraging people to get involved.
In goalball, everybody has blindfolds. So if you're sighted or visually impaired, you're all on the same playing level field, and it's all fun for everybody, especially sighted people, because it's losing their sight, so they've got to use their hearing the most important.
Humber RNLI lifeboat crews rescued a boy who had been separated from his parents in marshland between Cleethorpes and Humberston for 5 hours. A shoreline search was carried out along with a lifeboat mobile crew, Coast Guard mobile teams and Humberside Police, searching the high waterline and footpaths. RNLI Cleethorpes say they found a frightened and cold young boy in the pitch black. The youngster is now safe and has been reunited with his family, who were on holiday at the time. Well, that is the latest. If you do have any stories, you can give us a ring on 01472 315561 or on Twitter or Facebook at Estuary TV. Until next time, goodbye.
Last week saw the official opening of a new training academy at Humberside Airport. The R.H. Mitchell Aircraft Maintenance Academy will train aircraft technicians to repair planes and get them into work on places such as military bases. The local council hopes this is the start of a period of investment in the local job market, coming after job losses at Tata Steel, as we went to find out.
10 months ago it was just an empty space. Now it's a £5 million state-of-the-art training academy aiming to train the next generation of aircraft engineers, run by one of the world's biggest aircraft manufacturers.
We're celebrating 2 things. I think first of all the building and the occupation of this fantastic new benchmark facility for our maintenance trainees, and then secondly we're commemorating the success of last year's trainee throughput. It's taken 10 months from cutting turf to occupying the facility that we have today. I think a tremendous achievement for all parties that have been involved.
The R.J. Mitchell Aircraft Maintenance Academy, named after the inventor of the Spitfire, will create 150 jobs over the next 3 years for apprentice aircraft technicians, giving them the chance to work on air bases across the globe. For BAE, it gives them a chance to train a highly skilled workforce that isn't readily available.
We're going through quite a growth in our export markets at the moment, which demands competent people to go and furnish the support of the customer's aircraft. So as I said before, it's over 1,000 people over the next 5 to 6 years. We need somewhere to train them because they're just not locally available. It brings to BAE the opportunity to train over 1,000 people over the next 5 years and beyond in top-class maintenance engineering, both from a hands-on skill point of view as well as an analytical point of view as well.
The job losses at Tata Steel and Scunthorpe have cast shadows over the North Lincolnshire jobs market. But the council says that the investment in the training academy and upcoming projects like the Able Marine Energy Park will create a highly skilled, localised workforce.
Yeah, it's really important. This £4 million building will provide a state-of-the-art training facility for local people and for BAE, but particularly for the local economy, it's really important that we actually attract more engineers into the area, because we've also got the marine energy park happening, and we have a real skill shortage in engineers. And I think to have such an exciting opportunity to train with something like BAE and work on jet fighters, it will do a lot in the local area to attract people into the engineering industry.
For apprentices on the scheme, the new training facilities offer unique opportunities to enhance their future career prospects.
It gives you first on-hand experience straight away, so it means that you go through the modules, learn about the aircraft, learn about your trade, and then in your second year you get to go onto an RAF base and work on the aircraft properly with other RAF personnel. Yes, definitely. It means that there's no surprises as soon as you get into the full-time job. So yeah, it's definitely very beneficial.
Still to come tonight, Peter Vickers, Industrial Chaplain of North Lincolnshire, will bring us our weekly reflections, and we have the latest local sports news. The Grimsby Symphony Orchestra was founded back in 1940 to keep spirits up during the war. It was the brainchild of the then Chief Constable of Grimsby, Charles Butler, and his friend Mr. J. Temple Ryle, the town clerk. Now, in its 75th year, Deirdre Perry is their publicity secretary, and she joins us now. Deirdre, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's a fascinating history. What's the immediate future of the orchestra?
Well, we're feeling very positive. The situation at the moment is that we are short of a few instrumentalists, particularly violinists in our first violin section, 2 oboes and 2 bassoons, although additional members, particularly in string players, are very, very welcome. The situation is that we have regular members who come to rehearsals every week, and they pay a subscription which covers the hire of the hall, the hire of the music, and goes towards the cost of the concert. But sadly, because we don't have sufficient first violins, we never get the full balance of the orchestra until the final rehearsal and the concert, because then we invite visiting players to come and play with us.
How hard is it to find musicians? I mean, I would have thought the bassoon players are pretty thin on the ground, aren't they?
Yes, they appear and reappear from time to time. We had a regular bassoon player who was a doctor training doing her training at Grimsby Hospital, but of course she then was moved to Hull and then on to Scarborough. She said she hoped to come back to Grimsby but hasn't reappeared yet. Another bassoonist, Robin Parker, who's a local person, he has gone sailing off into the sunset along the canals of Europe, so we shan't be seeing him for a while, so hence no bassoons at the moment. Oboes, we have had oboes from time to time. They've moved out of the area or got involved in other things and no longer play with us.
So how many members of the orchestra are there in total? How big an operation have you got?
At the moment, there are about 36, 38 of us who
well,
rehearse regularly, yes.
Pretty close to a full-sized
It
piece.
is, yes, but it's slightly unbalanced because we are short of particularly first violins. We have about 5 of them who attend regularly, and sadly our leader will be leaving us this after this concert, because he comes from Hull and is a music teacher in the Hull area and has a very heavy teaching programme on a Wednesday, which is our rehearsal day.
He's been with you for a long time.
For quite some time. The leader has. Our musical director, of course, Neville Turner, has been with us for considerably longer, and this will be his last concert with us as a permanent musical director.
So what is the concert? Where is it? How can people go?
The concert is at the Grimsby Central Hall in Duncombe Street on the 21st of Saturday, the 21st of November at 7:30. Tickets are available from the Central Hall box office, and you can book them over the phone as well as calling in person, and they will be available on the evening of the concert.
And what's the programme?
The programme is the Beethoven's Egmont Overture, a Schubert Symphony which is entitled The Tragic Symphony. We hope it's not too tragic.
It's the 4th Symphony in C minor. It's I don't think it's tragic in the sense of being a failure.
No, I hope not, and I hope it isn't foreboding the demise of the orchestra, but that it does have that title. And then a violin concerto by Mozart, and our soloist is our leader this time.
Violin concerto number 5 in A major.
Yes.
Very good. Sounds like a fascinating programme. Sounds beautiful. Do you always perform in the same places, or do you move around? Are you a touring orchestra?
For the last 2 or 3 years, we've been at the Central Hall. We did have a period about 5 or 6 years ago when numbers dropped tremendously, and we hadn't even got a full wind. Anywhere near a full wind section, so we played as a string orchestra. Neville had a sabbatical year, so we played without a permanent musical director. So we rehearsed as a chamber group and then invited visiting conductors to come and conduct us, and we played in St Peter's Church in Cleethorpes, Tetney Church, etc. Then various people showed an interest in joining the orchestra and the numbers went up, and we were too large for church venues. So then the Central Hall, we sort of renegotiated with them, and you can actually have just the downstairs seating or the upstairs seating, which reduces the cost.
Sounds perfect, Deirdre. We'll talk more about the future of the orchestra and a little bit more about its past in a moment.
Thank you.
Join me after the break. We'll be talking more to Deirdre, and we'll bring you all the latest local sports news. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come, Peter Vickers, industrial chaplain of North Lincolnshire, shares his weekly reflections, and we have the latest local sports news. Still with me in the studio, Deirdre Perry of the Grimsby Symphony Orchestra. You've got that concert coming up on the 21st of November.
Yes.
Beethoven, Mozart and Schubert. You're having, after that, a new musical director.
We are, yes. We're looking forward to this very much, although we're very sorry to be losing Neville, but we quite understand. He has a heavy load of... He conducts the Lincoln Choral Society and the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra, and he... wishes to sort of reduce his workload somewhat. Yes, our new musical director for the next concert is going to be Susan Grant, who is an American lady, I think originally from Philadelphia. She conducts the Boston Orchestra, not the Boston Pops, but the Boston Symphony Orchestra in Lincolnshire, and the Louth Orchestra. And so we're really looking forward to her coming and directing us.
Excellent, but you're still at this recruitment business. I'm fascinated by this because there must be people who play instruments.
Oh, there are.
To a high standard.
There are.
Whose skills aren't being put into any good use.
Well, I suppose a lot of the violinists are violin teachers, and probably they would say their skills are being put to good use in teaching youngsters. But we would dearly love them to come and play with us on a regular basis.
Well, it must, even if you're a violin teacher and it must get tasked in playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star 3 times a day. With an 8-year-old.
Well, yes, I would have thought so, yes. Come
do some grown-up music. How did you get into it? You play what?
I play the viola now. I started off on the violin. As I said, I told you privately, I started for completely the wrong reasons.
Which was?
When I went to the local grammar school, my parents had a letter, like all the other parents, saying, would your daughter like to learn a musical instrument? And I chose the trumpet, which my father said, no, that was far too noisy. I could learn the violin.
I think he was a wise man.
Yes, and so but I said, in the days of pop music coming into the realms of the musical world, that that was for squares, so I didn't wish to learn the violin. And then during the first year, I realised that when it came to the summer term, the local education authority then, which was Lindsay County Council, had musical weekends held at local schools where you went and camped out and had quite a social life, but did a lot of music as well and performed a concert for your parents in the afternoon. And there were boys at this.
Good Lord.
At these weekends from schools throughout the Lindsay Education District.
Authority, yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'm missing out here. And so I started to play the violin. About a year or so later, the youth orchestra was founded. And a year after that, the only 2 viola players then in the youth orchestra were going to university. And I had the opportunity to borrow a very nice viola and changed over then. And viola players never starve because there aren't many of us.
Right.
So
you're a rare breed.
Yes. So viola players are always well in demand.
And it's a beautiful instrument, isn't it? It's a wonderful sound. What's the musical scene around? I mean, you're based in Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire General. What's the musical scene like?
It isn't quite as flourishing as it used to be. The I was a founder member of the youth orchestra, which started off with one orchestra, then expanded into 2 or 3 orchestras, training strings, junior strings, 2 symphonic wind bands, and then we migrated to the Grimsby Symphony Orchestra if you were invited. The youth orchestra isn't quite so flourishing as it was. The music and performing arts service have an orchestra.
There's something for everybody there if people want
to. Yes, and the choirs, etc.
People should contact you if they want to join the orchestra, bassoonists and strings especially, 01472 233 712.
That's correct.
That's the number to contact. Any budding musicians out there? Your opportunity has come. Deirdre, thank you very much
indeed. Thank you.
Time now for our weekly reflections, this time with Peter Vickers, the industrial chaplain of North Lincolnshire.
Here at the Admin Centre, we often discuss stress and the effects of stress. Stress in the workplace, and in a few weeks' time, I'm helping to host a discussion by business HR representatives on that same subject. Now, stress for so many has become such a part of their life that it has become normal. For some, even almost essential. Now, it may seem that there's nothing you can do about stress. The bills keep coming in, you need at least 26 hours in the day, the workload keeps growing, and then there's family responsibilities. You can, though, have more control than you might think. Managing stress is all about taking charge. Take charge of your thoughts, your emotions, your schedule, and the way that you deal with problems. But to do that, you have to take perhaps the hardest step, and that is to take a break. That's right, stop. The Bible talks of this in terms of the Sabbath, the idea that you step back regularly from life for some recreation. A lecturer, when explaining stress management to his students, raised a glass of water and asked, "How heavy is this glass of water?" And the answers came back ranging from 20 grams to 500 grams. The lecturer replied, "Well, you see, the weight doesn't really matter. It depends on how long you try to hold it. If I hold it for a minute, that's not a problem. If I hold it for an hour, I may have an ache in my right arm. But if I hold it for a day, then you'll have to call an ambulance. In each case, it's the same weight, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it becomes." He continued, "That's the way it is with managing stress. If we carry our burdens all the time, sooner or later, as the burden becomes increasingly heavy, we won't be able to carry on. You have to put it down for a while and rest before holding it again. When we are refreshed, then we can take it up and carry on. So before you return home from work, put the burden of work down. Don't carry it home. You can always pick it up again tomorrow. Whatever burdens you're carrying, let them down, even if only for a moment. Then relax. Pick them up later after you've rested." And remember that numerous times in the Bible we read that this was important for Jesus, for he himself took time away to step off the escalator. So should we.
Joining me as usual for a daily look at the news, Erica Barker. Erica,
hello. Yeah,
couple of stories for me today?
Yeah, I'm going to start with this serious one in the Grimsby Telegraph. It says more than a third of men in our region have considered suicide. This relates to 18 to 45-year-olds. Now, the male suicide charity Campaign Against Living Miserably commissioned a YouGov poll which showed that 36% of Yorkshire and Humber men under 45 have considered suicide, compared to 42% nationally. In the North East, even more worryingly, it was 52%. I've got some more figures here. In 2014, there was 4,623 male suicides in the UK. Male suicides account for 76% of all suicides.
Why? Well, firstly, Yorkshire and Humber seems to be slightly less suicidal. The men of Yorkshire and Humber ever so slightly less suicidal than the rest of the country.
Yes, but it does if you compare it, but it's still above the national average. And we're still looking at a third of men in our region.
Why are we so miserable?
I don't know. It's. I mean, I personally was unaware that so many men were affected. it does say that the reasons they do put behind it is that men sometimes struggle to talk about how they feel, and if they do have suicidal thoughts, they don't want to worry people about them, and that this could be an issue. And
why are men less likely to commit suicide or more likely than women?
Well, they account for 72%, I think it was, I said. So, yeah, yes. So it is more. Yes. But very worrying statistics, and I think it's important to talk about it so men feel more comfortable to talk about it. Just mention the other story very quickly. Yeah, just quickly. So the number of drinkers being hospitalised after consuming too much alcohol in Hull is one of the highest in the country. I think it comes at 16th in the country when it comes to people being hospitalised for alcohol. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hugh. Time now for the sport. At the KC Stadium, England kicked off their autumn international series with a 26-12 victory over New Zealand, with former Hull FC and Hull KR hooker Josh Hodgson among the scorers for Steve McNamara's team. Meanwhile, for the Kiwis, former Hull FC favourite Sam Moa was on the score sheet. Hull stretched their unbeaten run to 8 championship games and 10 in all competitions as Hull City won 2 away to MK Dons. Ahmed Al-Mohamadeh scored his first goal since August before sub Mohamed Dayam scored in the 94th minute. The Tigers are now 2 points behind leaders Brighton. Mike Robbins' side is 9th in the table after Scunthorpe beat his former side Barnsley 2-0 at Glanford Park. Gary Hopper scored his first goal of the season before Gary McSheffery netted the second from Scott Wiseman's cross. Elsewhere, 13 proved unlucky for Grimsby as they lost 1-0 to fellow promotion rivals Cheltenham on Friday in their first defeat in 12 games in all competitions. The results on Saturday in the National League saw Grimsby drop down to 9th position in the division. And North Ferriby's 17-match unbeaten run came to an end, losing 3-1 at Nuneaton. The Villagers were 3 goals down at half-time. Well, that's the latest from the sport. That's it for tonight. If you have a news story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31 553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Estuary TV weather, sponsored by Rix Petroleum, your local family-owned heating oil supplier this winter.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Most places will be dry, although generally cloudy, especially on Pennines with mist. Some bright spells are possible in eastern areas, and a brisk southerly wind will ease later, feeling mild with a maximum temperature of 16 degrees. Sunday will be largely dry with some light winds.
Rix, servicing the region's oil boilers this winter from a name you can trust. Get in touch at rix.co.uk or call us on 01482 838383.